My son has this awesome Power Rangers costume for Halloween, but we really need to upgrade that mask. I started by measuring the circumference of his head. Once I got the measurement, I loaded up Blender, found this 3D model of the helmet I wanted to print along with 3D model of this head. I made a little cylinder, and I scaled the head down to match the cylinder, and that cylinder was the actual circumference of his head. Then I just had to scale down the mask until it fit on this model head, a little bit adjusting, and then I was ready to go. Now, I'm going to be printing this on my AnkerMaker. I loaded up the file into the AnkerMaker slicer. It's very important here that you pick tree supports. Tree supports just work better for this type of printing. And then it was off to the races. This print took a little over a day to complete. I was just using some basic gray PLA Plus filament. And this was kind of hard to get out of those tree supports. This took a little while, and I had to be very careful because I didn't want to break the visor. But unfortunately, I did break a little piece of the visor, but I find Gorilla Super Glue Gel actually works really well to glue PLA back in place, a lot better than regular super glue. Once I had that fixed up, there was a little crack. I decided to fix that too. The back of the helmet, I printed in a different orientation, just backside down. And this time I just used regular supports. Next up, I just use a carpet blade to clean up any of the excess plastic, especially around the edges of the helmet. And here you can see how rough the inside of that helmet was, but I'm planning to fix that later. Next, I use some 220 grit sanding pads on my orbital sander and just started to sand this whole thing down. Now the back was especially bad, so it required a little bit extra sanding. And this definitely took a while. I was sanding this thing for at least an hour. And because of the geometry of the helmet, I had to use a little bit of sandpaper and hand sand a lot of the small places that was hard to get into. Then I cleaned up all the dust and got ready to try my hand at some MotorMaster body filler. Now, I mixed this up, and that's way too much hardener. You only want a tiny little bit of hardener. This hardened on me way too quickly. My first attempt didn't go so well. I think I was trying to apply it too thin. You could see I just kept scraping it off. But after a little while, I got the hang of it, and I just applied it a little bit thicker and just continued to work it with this small piece of plastic that I cut from a butter towel. It was nice and flexible, so it contoured with the helmet shape. Of course, the more time you spend here, the nicer applications this is going to be. The back was a little easier to do because there wasn't as much stuff in my way. But overall, this was kind of difficult to do, and I definitely need some practice at this. The excess here, I just used my screwdriver to scrape it off. But you can see here, I kind of went pretty heavy with the body fill. And it was definitely at this point that I was worried that maybe I applied too much. I used a little hobby knife here to clean out the excess in the small crevices and cracks. And then I sized the thing up, and it was looking pretty rough. I had to do a lot of sanding to get this back down to something that resembled a smooth surface. So again, I took my orbital sander to any areas that I could actually make it fit in there. But I eventually had to go in with my hand and sand it with a little tiny piece of sandpaper. Now the more sanding you do here, the better this finish is going to be. Once you're ready, go ahead and prime it up. It's best to prime it gray to start, and that'll allow you to see any imperfections. I'd be lying if I said using this body fill was easy. It was definitely a little harder than I thought it would be. It's hard to get the right mixture with this stuff, and this Helmet's got a lot of geometry, so it's tricky to get around these corners. At this point, you can see in this helmet some of the imperfections shining through. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this particular piece because really it's just a test piece, but I am going to go and fix a couple of these really bad spots with a little bit of extra body fill, and then we're going to move on to paint. Of course, depending on how much time you spend at this is going to dictate the results here, and I could tell that this method is definitely one that would produce some really good results. So let's finish this thing up. Now the primer itself can act as a bit of a body fill, so I just went ahead and sanded some of the high spots down, and the primer kind of filled it in as I went. I gave it a good sanding again on the side that seemed to be a little rough, and then I applied some more body fill in the areas that the finish just wasn't the way I wanted it. Now once I sanded it down, it was ready for some paint, and I used some aluminum metallic to do the visor pieces. Okay guys, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and smash the like button, but also let me know in the comments who your favorite Power Ranger was. Mine, of course, is a tie actually between Jason and Tommy from the original Mighty Morphin show. Also guys, if you know something that I could use to put in the visor area here, let me know. Something that I can tint black or something that is already tinted black. I'm not exactly sure what to use in the visor. Of course, I had to mask this off and get ready for some Bright Apple Red by Rust-Oleum, and I gave this thing 2 coats. Of course, as always, my Patreons, you guys are awesome. Love you guys. My Patreon is linked below if you want to check it out. We're always doing cool stuff over there, like early videos, behind the scenes, pictures, STL files, stuff like that. It's kind of cool. Check it out and hang out with me over there. This got to be one of the most satisfying parts of the build when you get to pull the masking tape off. And this thing, I got to say, was looking pretty nice so far, but it did require a couple of more details. I had to go in and paint some black here. I just used some Boylei acrylic paints. Carefully painted the black in, and then of course the eyes in the upper part of the helmet also had to be painted. And after base coating in black, I used some Boylei Magic Blue to really make those eyes on top of the helmet pop. Then I decided to use some craft foam to try to fix the back of that helmet. I basically cut an oval. I went ahead and cut some slits in it so that it would fold a little bit easier when I place it in the helmet. This is a great method if you don't have a lot of space in your helmet for like thicker foam. Just a little bit of hot glue, and then I went ahead and glued this in the back of the helmet, and I covered up all the rough area so hopefully his hair don't get caught in it. And the chin was looking a little bit rough too, so I decided to put a little piece of foam in the chin just so it's nice and soft down there. Then I found some red Velcro, lucky enough, and I decided I was going to use the Velcro to be able to fasten the back of the helmet on. And the reason I did this is because, you know, for Halloween night it would be nice to be able to easily get it on and get it off. So I just used a little bit of hot glue, but I might have to go back and use some epoxy because I don't know if that's going to hold. Once I had it in place, I just cut the Velcro in 2. And then using the other piece, I could just now fasten it back together. And I'd done 4 connection points here, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and the red blends in pretty good with the helmet, so I was happy with that. I've got to say, this thing actually looks really good for my first attempt at body fill. It's okay. With a little bit of practice, I think I can make some super smooth 3D prints with this stuff or some cosplay stuff. Now the little man fit on his head perfectly. The back just Velcros on, nice and simple. And what do you guys think? I think this is a big upgrade from the plastic mask. I've got a lot of cool videos on my channel. There's some here. Stick around, check them out, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.